Professor Taeho squinted at the ancient holographic display as data streams illuminated his face with a soft blue glow. The Caxtheri historian had spent the last 40 years studying first contacts across the galactic hegemony, but something about the human records troubled him. "Computer, display human ship designs from initial contact through year 500, he ordered. The air before him filled with rotating models of early human vessels. Primitive by current standards, but something caught his eye. He zoomed in on structural elements that looked strangely familiar. Taeho pulled up current Imperial ships and placed them side by side with the ancient human designs. The resemblance was subtle but unmistakable. The way the hull plates overlapped. The arrangement of drive systems. The placement of shield emitters. "This can't be right," he muttered. He checked the timestamps. The human designs were over 3,000 years old, yet they contained the seed concepts of what were now considered cutting-edge Imperial innovations. Taeho sat back in his chair, four-fingered hands pressed together. Humans had been classified as a minor species from an unremarkable solar system. They received the standard diplomatic package when discovered: minimal territory rights, basic technology sharing, and largely symbolic representation in galactic affairs. Then they were essentially forgotten. The Empire had more pressing matters than a bipedal species from the galactic rim. Humans didn't cause problems. They didn't expand aggressively. They traded modestly. They were, by all accounts, utterly unremarkable. Yet these records suggested something else entirely. Taeho searched deeper into the archives. Human patent submissions to the Galactic Registry numbered in the thousands, spanning centuries. Most were flagged as theoretical, impractical, or unsuitable for standard implementation. A pattern of dismissal became clear. "Computer, who was the last Imperial official to conduct a comprehensive review of human technological development?" "No comprehensive review on record," the computer replied. "Last official visit to human space? Limited diplomatic exchange, 212 standard years ago." Taeho felt a chill along his spine ridges. An entire species had been developing in isolation for over 2 centuries, and before that, contact had been minimal at best. He composed a request for a research expedition to human space. His superior, Director Paxlor, rejected it immediately. "Waste of resources," the rejection read. "Human space is of no strategic or academic importance." Taeho wasn't deterred. He had tenure and discretionary research funds. If the official channels wouldn't support his investigation, he would go alone. 3 weeks later, his small research vessel dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of human territory. He expected to find what the records described: a modest collection of colonies struggling along at the edges of galactic civilization. Instead, his sensors detected thousands of ships moving in complex patterns. Space stations orbited multiple planets. Energy readings suggested power production far beyond what humans should possess. A communication request pinged his system. "Unidentified vessel, this is Earth Space Control. Please identify yourself and state your purpose." Taeho swallowed nervously. "This is Professor Taeho of the Imperial Historical Institute. I am conducting historical research on technological development patterns." There was a pause before the response came. "Professor, we'd be happy to assist with your research. Please proceed to coordinates being transmitted. A guide will meet you." The coordinates led to an orbital station that dwarfed anything Taeho had expected. As he docked, he observed ships of unusual design moving with incredible precision. His guide was waiting at the airlock, a human female with dark hair pulled back tightly. "Welcome to Earth Station Alpha, Professor. I'm Director Ji Woo. We're quite surprised to see an Imperial historian. It's been a long time since anyone showed interest in us." "That's precisely why I'm here," Taeho said. "I've been studying first contact records and noticed some anomalies." Ji Woo smiled. "I'm sure you have many questions. Please follow me." As they walked through the station, Taeho noticed technology that seemed both familiar yet advanced beyond Imperial standards. The efficiency was remarkable.
Director, these systems aren't in any Imperial registry.
No, they wouldn't be, Jiwoo replied calmly. We submitted everything to the Galactic Archives, but after the first few centuries of having our patents classified as impractical, we stopped expecting implementation.
We just kept building. Taeho stopped walking. For 3,000 years, you've been developing technology independently?
Of course.
What else would we do?
The Empire made it clear we weren't of interest. She gestured toward a viewport.
Would you like to see our shipyards?
Outside, massive vessels took shape, sleek and elegant in ways that made Imperial ships look clumsy and overbuilt. The Empire has no idea what you've achieved, Taeho whispered.
No, Jiwoo agreed. They never asked. But perhaps it's time they learned.
Director Jiwoo led Professor Taeho through the massive observation deck overlooking Earth's primary shipyard. Below them, workers moved with purpose among vessels that defied Imperial engineering principles. The ships lacked the bulky armor and exposed weapon systems common to galactic designs. Instead, they featured smooth, flowing lines with systems integrated directly into the hull.
How many ships do you produce annually? Taeho asked, trying to keep his voice level despite his astonishment.
This facility handles about 200 capital vessels and perhaps 1,000 smaller craft, Jiwoo replied casually. We have similar yards at Mars, Europa, and Titan, plus the colonial systems. Taeho's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep shock among his species. That production capacity rivals the Imperial core worlds, he said.
Jiwoo nodded.
We had to become self-sufficient. The trade tariffs made Imperial goods too expensive, and no one would license their technology to us. A sleek vessel caught Taeho's attention. Unlike the others, it appeared to have no visible propulsion system at all.
What drives that ship? He asked.
That's our latest model using gravity field manipulation. It creates a directional gravity well that the ship essentially falls into continuously.
Taeho stared at her.
The Empire has been trying to develop that technology for centuries.
The power requirements are impossible. Jiwoo smiled. Not impossible. Just approached differently. She gestured to a door. Let me show you our power systems.
They entered a secure area where engineers worked at stations monitoring a glowing central column.
This is a quantum fold reactor, Jiwoo explained. It creates a microscopic dimension fold that produces energy when it collapses back into normal space. But that's purely theoretical physics, Taeho protested. An older human male approached them, wiping his hands on a cloth.
His white hair contrasted with his dark skin. I developed the first working prototype about 80 years ago, he said, extending his hand.
Chief Engineer Minho. It's based on principles we submitted to the Galactic Patent Office in 2412. Taeho remembered seeing those files.
They had been labeled speculative and archived without review.
Why didn't you press for recognition? Taeho asked. Minho exchanged a look with Jiwoo.
We tried, Professor. For the first 1,000 years, we tried. Eventually, we realized it was easier to develop on our own than fight Imperial bureaucracy.
As they continued the tour, Taeho's amazement grew.
Humans had developed manufacturing methods, materials, and technologies that existed nowhere else in the galaxy.
Their approach was fundamentally different, elegant and efficient rather than overwhelming and redundant.
Your civilization should be a galactic power, Taeho said finally.
With these technologies, you could control trade routes, establish new colonies. Why would we want that? Jiwoo interrupted. Conquest and dominance are Imperial values, not ours. Then what do humans want? To explore. To understand. To build. Minho gestured around them. We've spent 3 millennia doing exactly that.
Later, they sat in Jiwoo's office overlooking the vast shipyard.
A small craft was preparing for departure, its hull gleaming in the light of Earth's sun.
That ship, Jiwoo explained, will reach the Andromeda Galaxy within 5 years.
Taeho nearly dropped his drink. That's impossible.
The fastest Imperial ships would take centuries to reach Andromeda.
We've had outposts there for almost 300 years, Minho said quietly. We've mapped 15% of it so far. Taeho's mind raced. The implications were staggering.
Humans weren't just keeping pace with the Empire, they had surpassed it in ways no one had imagined possible. Why show me this? He asked finally.
You've kept these advancements hidden for thousands of years. Why reveal them now?
Jiwoo's expression turned serious.
Because the galaxy is changing, Professor.
The void rifts in the Sagittarius arm are expanding.
Within 50 years, they'll threaten Imperial core systems. What? There's been no report of this.
Imperial sensors can't detect them properly, Minho explained.
Our gravitational imaging can.
We've been monitoring them for centuries. We believe it's time for humanity to rejoin galactic affairs, Jiwoo continued. Not as conquerors, but as partners.
The coming crisis will require technologies the Empire doesn't possess.
Taeho looked out at the shipyard again, seeing it with new eyes. These weren't merely ships. They represented an entirely different approach to existence, one born of isolation and necessity. The Empire won't easily accept that they've been surpassed, he said carefully.
We know, Jiwoo replied.
That's why we needed someone like you, someone who understands history and can help bridge the gap between our worlds.
You planned for me to find those anomalies in the records, Taeho realized. Minho smiled.
Let's just say we made sure they were visible to anyone who was really looking. Taeho gazed at the starship preparing to journey to another galaxy and made his decision.
Tell me what you need me to do.
The Imperial command vessel Eternal Dominion hovered at the edge of the neutral zone, its massive form dwarfing the escort ships surrounding it. On its bridge, High Commander Rukath paced nervously, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the tactical displays. They're late, he growled to his adjutant. Only by Imperial Standard Time, sir, the younger officer replied carefully.
By Earth time, they still have 3 minutes. Rukath snorted. More evidence of their disregard for proper protocol.
The truth was more complicated.
When Professor Taeho had presented his findings to the Imperial Council, the reaction had been swift and severe. Accusations of deception, demands for inspections, and thinly veiled threats followed. The humans had responded with a simple proposal, a demonstration. Now representatives from 17 major galactic powers waited to see if humans were a threat or merely bluffing. Contact. Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace, announced the sensor officer. On screen, Rukath ordered. The main viewer showed empty space, then 5 points of light appeared. The lights expanded into ships unlike any in the Imperial fleet.
They were smaller, sleeker, with none of the expected weapon mounts or shield generators visible.
Those can't be their main battle vessels, scoffed Admiral Zexper of the War Council.
They're barely the size of our scout ships. Incoming transmission, the communications officer reported. The screen changed to show a human male with short dark hair and calm eyes.
Imperial Delegation, I am Captain Doohyun of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. Thank you for agreeing to this demonstration. We will begin in 5 minutes. Before Rukath could respond, the transmission ended.
Arrogant creatures, he muttered.
Professor Taeho stood quietly near the back of the bridge. He alone knew what was coming. The 5 human ships arranged themselves in a perfect pentagon formation.
Then, without warning, they accelerated to speeds that sent Imperial sensors into warning mode.
That's impossible, gasped the tactical officer.
They're moving at 15% light speed in normal space. The formation changed, ships weaving complex patterns around each other with precision that suggested automated systems rather than living pilots.
Now they're just showing off, Admiral Zexper said, but his voice lacked conviction. Captain Doohyun's voice came through again. For our next demonstration, we will showcase defensive capabilities.
Please feel free to scan our vessels during this portion.
One ship separated from the formation and positioned itself 2 kilometers from the Imperial fleet. A small object ejected from its side.
They've launched something, reported the tactical officer. Weapons lock, demanded Rukath.
No, sir. It appears to be a target drone.
The human ship fired a beam of energy at the drone. The drone exploded with a force that rocked even the massive Imperial command vessel. That blast was equivalent to our heavy cruiser main cannons, the science officer reported, voice shaking.
But their ship shows no energy drain. It's impossible.
The demonstrations continued for another hour. The human ships performed maneuvers that defied known physics. They demonstrated weapons that penetrated shields thought impervious. They showed defensive systems that absorbed energies that should have vaporized their vessels. Throughout it all, Professor Tejo observed the growing horror on the faces of the Imperial High Command.
Finally, the 5 ships regrouped in their original formation. Captain Duhyun appeared on screen again. We hope this demonstration has been informative.
These are standard patrol vessels, equivalent to what you might call corvettes.
They represent technology that is approximately 50 years old by our standards. A stunned silence fell over the Imperial bridge. 50 years old, whispered someone.
To be clear, Duhyun continued, humanity has no hostile intentions toward the Empire or any galactic power. We have lived peacefully at the edge of your territory for 3,000 years. We wish only to continue that peace, but with greater cooperation. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so centuries ago, Tejo said quietly. Rukath turned to him, eyes narrow.
You knew what they were capable of. I suspected, Tejo admitted. But even I am surprised by the extent of their advancement.
Why now? Demanded Admiral Zexper.
Why reveal themselves after hiding for millennia?
Tejo stepped forward.
They weren't hiding.
They were submitting their innovations to the Galactic Registry for centuries.
We chose not to see what was in front of us. Captain Duhyun's image remained on screen.
We're ready to begin discussions whenever you are, Commander Rukath. Humanity offers friendship and technological exchange.
The choice is yours. Rukath looked at the human ships, then at the concerned faces of his officers, and finally at Professor Tejo.
It seems, he said slowly, we have much to discuss. The Imperial High Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all major galactic powers filled the ancient circular hall, their voices creating a constant hum of anxious conversation. Emergency sessions were rare, this was only the third in 500 years. High Commander Rukath stood at the center podium, his scaled skin pale with stress. Beside him, Admiral Zexper displayed footage from the human demonstration on the massive holographic projector. As you can see, Rukath said, his voice cutting through the noise, human technology far exceeds our previous assessments. Their vessels outperform our best ships in every metric. Minister Kolak of Military Intelligence pounded his fist on the table.
This must be a deception.
No species develops this rapidly without outside help.
We've analyzed the footage extensively, Admiral Zexper replied.
The capabilities are real. Professor Tejo stood when called upon, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him.
My research indicates humans have been developing these technologies independently for 3 millennia.
They submitted over 40,000 patents to imperial registries. Most were classified as theoretical or impractical without thorough examination.
Why would they reveal themselves now? Asked the Arcturian representative. After hiding their true capabilities for so long?
They were never hiding, Tejo corrected.
We simply weren't paying attention.
The doors at the far end of the chamber opened.
A small delegation of humans entered, led by Ambassador Hajun.
The room fell silent as they approached the central platform. Thank you for allowing us to address the council, Hajun said calmly.
We understand our demonstration has caused concern.
Concern?
Minister Kolak sneered.
You have secretly built a war fleet that could threaten the entire empire. Hajun remained composed.
If conquest were our intention, why would we reveal our capabilities through a peaceful demonstration? Why not simply attack? No one had a good answer.
Computer, Hajun called out, display human patent submission 12478, dated Imperial Year 2819.
A holographic display changed to show technical diagrams of a propulsion system. This is the quantum drive that powers our current vessels. We submitted it to your registry over 700 years ago. It was classified as theoretical. No practical application and archived without review.
Ha-Jun gestured, and the display changed again.
Patent 23651, submitted in Imperial Year 3042. Our gravitational shield technology.
Classified as incompatible with standard Imperial systems without testing. Admiral Jean Su stepped forward, her military uniform bearing no weapons, a deliberate choice for this meeting. We have prepared a database of all technologies demonstrated yesterday, with their corresponding patent submissions to Imperial registries. In every case, humans shared our innovations openly.
In every case, they were dismissed.
The chamber erupted in angry voices.
Order! Rukath shouted, pounding his ceremonial staff. When quiet returned, he addressed the human delegation.
If what you say is true, then we have misjudged your species.
But that doesn't explain why you've chosen this moment to demonstrate your true capabilities.
Ha-Jun nodded to another human, who stepped forward.
I am Chief Scientist Sungmin, he said.
300 years ago, our deep space sensors detected anomalies in the fabric of spacetime, what we call void rifts.
They are expanding from the galactic core outward.
He activated a small device, projecting a map of the galaxy with dark tears spreading through it like cracks in glass. Imperial territories will be affected within 50 years.
The rifts disrupt hyperspace travel, communications, and eventually make planets uninhabitable. Stunned silence followed.
Our sensors can detect them, Sungmin continued.
Our technology can potentially close them. But we cannot do it alone.
The Centaurian ambassador spoke up.
Why should we believe this convenient threat that only your technology can detect? Professor Taeho stepped forward. Because I've verified their findings independently.
He displayed his own data. Using modified Imperial sensors based on human specifications, I confirmed the existence of these rifts last week. The council chamber descended into chaos again.
Accusations flew.
Some military leaders called for immediate seizure of human technology.
Others demanded defensive preparations against both humans and these supposed rifts.
Through it all, the human delegation stood calmly.
Finally, the ancient Quarian elder raised her voice. As the oldest being present, tradition demanded silence when she spoke.
For 3,000 years, she said slowly, we have ignored these humans. We dismissed them as primitive and unimportant.
Yet they developed, quietly and peacefully.
Now they come to us, not as conquerors, but with a warning and an offer of help. She fixed her 6 eyes on Rukath.
Perhaps it is time we listened. Ambassador Ha-Jun stepped forward again. We propose a joint commission, human and Imperial scientists working together to address the void rifts.
In exchange, we will share our technological advances openly. Rukath looked around the chamber, seeing the mixture of fear, anger, and reluctant curiosity on the faces of the galactic leaders.
The High Council will consider your proposal, he said finally. Until then, this session is adjourned. As the delegates filed out, Professor Taeho approached Ha-Jun.
They're afraid, he said quietly.
Ha-Jun nodded. We know. Change is always frightening. But it's better than extinction.
The enormous viewing gallery of New Terra Station hummed with activity as representatives from 200 worlds mingled. Through the crystal-clear windows, they could see the massive shipyard where the future of the galaxy was taking shape. Professor Taeho stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, sipping a drink and observing the scene with satisfaction. 1 year had passed since the Imperial Council had reluctantly agreed to human terms. What began as fear and suspicion had gradually transformed into something unexpected, cooperation. Quite a change from last year, said a familiar voice beside him.
Ambassador Ha-Jun joined him at the window.
I never imagined it would progress this quickly, Taeho admitted. Below them, teams of mixed species worked on a new class of vessel.
Its sleek lines combined human efficiency with Imperial size and grandeur. More importantly, it contains specialized equipment designed to seal the void rifts.
The first rift sealer will launch next month, Ha-Jun said.
We've already detected a 20% reduction in expansion rate at the test sites.
And the Imperial Military Command actually approved the design, Tae-ho marveled.
6 months ago, they wouldn't even look at human schematics. Ha-Jun smiled.
Amazing what the threat of extinction will do for open-mindedness.
Across the hall, Chief Engineer Eun-ji was explaining quantum fold technology to a group of fascinated Imperial scientists.
The concept had moved from impossible to standard in less than a year.
Your paper on human technological development has become quite popular, Ha-Jun noted. Even in the Imperial core worlds. Tae-ho nodded.
His comprehensive study of how humanity had evolved independently for 3 millennia had initially been met with disbelief and anger.
Now it was required reading at the Imperial Academy.
I simply documented what happened, Tae-ho said modestly. How the Empire repeatedly overlooked human innovation because it didn't match established patterns. And now those patterns are changing, Ha-Jun observed.
Admiral Jin-Soo approached them, her uniform now bearing the new combined insignia of Earth and the galactic hegemony.
Professor, Ambassador, the Council is ready for your presentation. They followed her to the central chamber where the highest officials from every major world waited.
What once would have been a tense military assessment was now a collaborative planning session.
High Commander Rukath, once the most vocal skeptic of human intentions, now co-chaired the Joint Development Commission. His scales had regained their healthy blue sheen as the immediate fear of human dominance had faded.
Let's begin, he said as they entered. Professor Tae-ho will present the historical context, followed by Ambassador Ha-Jun with the current progress report. Tae-ho activated the holographic display, showing the galaxy with the spreading void rifts highlighted.
1 year ago, we faced a crisis that threatened all civilized worlds, he began. Not just from the rifts themselves, but from our inability to collaborate. For 3,000 years, the Empire classified humans as a minor species of no significance. For 3,000 years, humans developed technologies the Empire considered impossible. The display shifted to show the first joint human Imperial shipyard. Now, we are building vessels together that neither could have created alone. Imperial size and resource management combined with human innovation and efficiency. He gestured to the latest statistics. Production rates have increased by 300%. Energy efficiency has improved by 400%. And most importantly, we have developed technology that can close the void rifts permanently. Rukath nodded in agreement. It seems we have all learned valuable lessons. The Empire had grown complacent, believing our way was the only way forward. Jin-Soo stepped forward. And we humans were content to develop in isolation, not pushing harder for recognition. An elderly Arcturian raised a tentacle. What happens after the rift crisis passes? Will humans withdraw again to their corner of the galaxy? Ha-Jun exchanged glances with Tae-ho before answering. No. We believe the new model of cooperation benefits everyone. The Joint Council will continue to oversee shared development. What do humans want from this arrangement? Asked the Centaurian delegate suspiciously. The same thing we've always wanted, Ha-Jun replied simply. To explore. To understand. To build. But now we wish to do it together. Later, as the first joint designed vessel prepared for its maiden voyage, Tae-ho and Ha-Jun watched from the observation deck. Its hull gleamed in the starlight, bearing emblems of both humanity and the galactic hegemony. 3,000 years of separate development, Tae-ho mused. And now everything changes. Not everything, Ha-Jun corrected. The Empire still loves its ceremonies and protocols. We humans still prefer efficiency over tradition. But we're learning from each other, Tae-ho said, watching the ship's engines glow to life. Yes, Ha-Jun agreed. And that may be the most important development of all. The massive vessel rose smoothly from its berth, representing not just new technology but a new approach to galactic civilization, one where different perspectives were valued rather than dismissed. What do you think we'll find beyond the rifts? Tae-ho asked. Ha-Jun smiled.
I don't know.
But for the first time in 3,000 years, we'll discover it together.